Well, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you all for taking time from your busy schedule to join this webinar today. This means a lot to me. I would like to share just two things. Um, One, that you need to follow during this webinar. One, keep yourself muted and switch off your camera to avoid disruption during this webinar. We will have a Q&A session at the end. Kindly post your questions in the chat box and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Well, to help you know me better, I am Miss Vichitra, IB Middle Years and Diploma Program Biology Educator from Wockhardt Global School. Wockhardt Global School is an IB Continent school in Aurangabad, Maharashtra. After teaching sciences for more than a decade in national curriculum schools, I have been blessed with an opportunity to facilitate the IB students exploring a new education system that aims at transforming um, the students as they learn using dynamic cycles of inquiry, action, and reflection. It has motivated me to take up this webinar on what assessment for learning is. I would like to share my screen here and just bear with me for a second. I'm so sorry for this. Since the recording is going on, I'm unable to minimize the screen. Yes. All right. I hope you can see my screen. Okay. So I welcome you all once again for this webinar, a wonderful session on assessment for learning. Do learners always learn what we teach? This is a really, really challenging question for each one of us to ponder on. Do learners always learn to what we teach? If you would like to type out, that would really help me in understanding the crowd, please. Do learners always learn what we teach? Right. Okay. Learners, learners do not always learn what we teach. That is why the most important assessment does not happen at the end of learning. It happens during the learning, when there is still time to do something with what you find out. This is a very important aspect of teaching. We teachers, what we do is sometimes, um, I'm talking about a scenario in a regular education system. What happens is in a classroom, when we plan for a unit, we just plan it, not keeping in mind the varied abilities or the diversified abilities and learning styles of students. We just create one comprehensive plan and we conduct it in the classroom. And we wait till the whole lesson or a unit is done. I'm talking about a regular scenario that happens. And after this, what we do is we assess them. We test them. Okay, let me use the word test because in a regular scenario, we conduct tests or we conduct exams. The most scariest word for students. So we test them. And now this test is usually done after we teach a particular content. But today I would like to walk you through the effective assessment, how to conduct it in the classroom. And this assessment is for learning. Now, you need to understand what learning is. Learning is a change that brings in an individual after an experience. So when you see an action is taken, a person is reacting, or a person is responding, or a person is a change is seen in his behavior after a particular experience, there we can say that learning has taken place. So we teachers need to understand that assessment is not done, it can be done at the end of the unit, just to sum up or to check their knowledge gained. But during the session or during your plan, whatever you have planned for your lesson, assessment for learning is important. And when you are assessing the learning of students, it's very important for you to have an evidence whether the students have understood or not, or what is going on in students' mind. Right? So today we are going to look at one such methodology, one such instruction where you're going to learn an approach how to understand assessment for learning. Most of you must have heard this word, formative assessment and summative assessment, right? So formative assessment is something that you assess to form the understanding or to form the learning of the student. To form, the word formative comes from to form. And summative comes from the root word for summative is to sum up. That is, you assess after you teach a particular content at the end of the unit. That is, you're going to sum it up for them. Right? So, how do we utilize this assessment for learning depends on the way we interpret the ideas and the practices. So, realizing what drives practice will help you to refine your methodology and strengthen your methodology. Now, here in my next slide, there are a few statements that fits best with the ideas that you have, or when you go to a classroom and you're teaching a particular unit. And what do you think about assessment for learning and how can it work in the classroom? If you can put it in the chat box, I'll be more than happy to see them. Review the below statements given below and write the statement you agree the most. Assessment for learning is to get inside the learner's head or to structure the learning, or is assessment for learning focusing or helping learners, or is it to assess which students can do the work, or is it to learners as resources for each other, or is it to talk is at the heart of it, or assessment for learning is done to get feedback for better differentiation in the classroom, or to get feedback to move learning forward, or to adapt and change what you are doing in your classroom. So if we are looking at what an assessment for learning, I would clearly say that formative assessment to form their knowledge for their learning, okay, to enhance their learning, the assessment that you're doing, which one of these or two of these you think, according to you, is assessment for learning? Okay, we've got few on the chat box. I think learners try to interpret what wants to be communicated, but it depends on communication. Absolutely. Yes. Social and emotional learning is needed now. Absolutely, social and emotional learning is needed. I have just taken a session on individualistic learning. For this is for the person who have typed social and emotional learning is needed now. The modern education system is looking at a different approach in the classroom for the teachers. So when I look at when I introspect myself, and if I'm a passionate teacher, if I want to bring in a change in my classroom, then I would definitely look for a different approach that will cater to the social and emotional needs of the students. So individualistic learning is one such approach. I just had a session on it. I'm sorry that you missed it. Feedback to move learning forward. Absolutely, this is what I believe, that formative assessment or an assessment to understand students' understanding and learning is to move learning forward. Thank you so much. Adapt a change, have a mentor for better assessment. I'm sorry, but you said adapt a change, have a mentor for better assessment. Okay, that again goes, it's diverting towards an approach, which I just told you, individualistic approach. Have a mentor, having a mentor to a particular student based on their learning styles, based on their educational needs is very important in today's learning scenarios. So even in our school, we have 12th IB and DP students with us, and we have teachers mentoring each student individually. So that's one of the plans we have, decided to have it in our school. So thank you for this statement, mentor for better assessment. Absolutely. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Now, how do we develop, or how do we allow this assessment for learning to happen? If you see, um, if we are wanting to develop a formatively driven classroom, then we need to consider how we can utilize the opportunities within our teaching. So it can be done through an intentional dialogue or an interactive dialogue, collaborative learning. Collaboration is the word in today's education field, and self-regulation. So with the students playing an active role in learning and assessment cycle, this is very, very important. Most of us forget students. We say, okay, I have done this unit. Let me plan out quickly this. I don't care if the student knows it or doesn't know it. I expect that he should know it because I've just taught it. It's easy to say all this, but are we as passionate teachers or facilitators? Are we facilitating the students and doing for them? So a range of techniques if you try in your classroom. Assessment for learning is actually, it gives us the underlying philosophy of our classroom, related to our classroom, the approach we use, and our students' role in the formative driven classroom is very, very important for us to understand. So one way we could do is encourage more talk. The best way to do is have somebody sit with you for your lesson, help them, let them, check your lesson and give you a positive and a constructive feedback about your lesson. And sometimes we realize that we are talking more than our students. So if we encourage students to talk more, I think that will really help them out. So there are some benefits if you encourage more talk in your classroom. It promotes domain-specific dialogue. It helps teachers understand what learners are actually thinking, what's going on in their mind. And it also gives learners formative feedback. Again, the word formative, it's forming them. Are we as teachers, we as individuals are supposed to form, to create, not to distract or to deform. So remember that we have a soul in our hand. So we are supposed to form the student, form a student, his understanding, his knowledge, his life is in your hands. Now, how do we do that? So one approach you could use to support this includes challenging questions. Challenge the questions either based on their misconceptions or maybe some some ambiguity in questions, or put real world life situations in front of them. They will love it when you ask something is in connecting with their interests or something is closely related to their life. So just go ahead and put those questions, right? So it is through these questions that you prompt thinking, and this leads to active discussion in your classroom. And this will provide a way of drawing out the evidence of learning from your students. This will help you understand how much have you achieved as an individual, as a facilitator, or as a teacher who is involved in helping the student to learn. So the focus, remember, the focus is not on chasing for a correct answer. The focus here is to drive the student to think and help to involve the students, all the students. Usually what happens is the one who are smart enough or who are well-read, they tend to take up the stage. But we are here to encourage the ones by provoking them to think, okay, who are unable to come up with. It's okay if the answer is right or wrong, right? The next one is introducing diagnostic questions. Now, diagnostic questions, diagnose, to diagnose a problem. Now, what could be the problem in our classrooms? One problem could be whether the student has understood what I was trying to tell them or teach, what I'm trying to teach them. So, if you introduce diagnostic questions, that will help you understand better where your child's understanding is. So, creating formatively driven classrooms by using diagnostic questions is very important. This will help you reveal what student is thinking about a particular concept or a particular idea or a particular topic in your classroom. This can be done in two ways, and one is intentional dialogue and the other one is hinge point questioning. Today in my webinar, I'm going to focus on hinge point questioning. All right. Let's look at this word, hinge point questioning. Hinge, you all must be knowing this word, hinge. Yeah, we have hinges for our doors. We have hinges at many places in our house if you just take a look around your place. So this will help you to move in one particular direction. A hinge always helps you to move, open or close in one particular direction. It doesn't take you to the other direction. right? It doesn't lead you to the opposite direction. So it only one particular direction means it is directing your planning. It is helping you, supporting you along with the support that it is giving to the students. So let's see how to implement this hinge point questioning in your classroom. The first one, the common interrelated questions I'm reading out here. How often do I use a hinge point question? Hinge point questions are used part way through the learning sequence so that you can check on all students understand. It means you can start off with the previous knowledge, with the prior knowledge, and then you can lead. And there's a point where you can take a pause and stop to check on students' understanding, right? So that's a point where you are pausing or stopping, and this is called a hinge point. So you are here stopping or pausing to check whether your student has understood, right? So you may eventually need several per topic. So it's not that I will go halfway, stop it, and then go halfway. No, it's not like that. Give breaks so that you understand whether your child is with you. You may eventually need several per topic to give you scope to use at least one in each lesson. Now, why do we do this? Why do we have to pause and go ahead and move ahead? Is one, to understand where your child is, what about his understanding, is he able to get you or no? Two, it will help you to move forward, to direct your lesson or to mend your way of teaching. It's very important for us to do this or adopt this hinge point question. Second question, how do hinge point questions differ from other types of questions? A very good question. Hinge point questions should be able to be answered quickly. Now, most of you must be thinking that, okay, I'll just take quick multiple choice questions, MCQs, and I'll check whether they have understood 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's over. Like I have tested, I can move ahead. Children have understood. No, here I would like to tell you that hinge point questioning is really and literally different from your multiple choice questions. So in what sense? Let's see here. These questions should be able to be answered quickly so that the teacher can see which student has understood and which did not. Two, hinge point questions do not need time for students to discuss the possible answers. It should be instant. Hinge point questions check rather than probe understanding. They check. Okay, they check the understanding. When is the best time to use hinge point questions? Hinge point questions provide evidence for the teacher on current understanding. It is giving us an evidence whether the student has understood, right? One, and it also gives the teacher, it helps teacher to understand the way the teacher has to continue with her unit to move forward. So hinge point questions can be used at any time in an individual lesson as long as the teacher is ready to act on the resulting evidence. Remember that I told you that we are doing this to also to get an evidence for our molding of our lesson, right? So to understand where our students are and how they have got it, and also to mold our lessons. So this questioning, this type of questioning will definitely help you to understand it better. Which classes might hinge point questions work with? It can work with any class. Once students have become accustomed to this approach, you can work out with this. So students also will get a track of, okay, right now is the time for us to pause. Let's now ma'am is going to question us, and the questions are you're going to learn during the process what kind of questions you're going to put it in hinge point questions. If some students are likely to copy the answer from other students, It may be better to ask them to close their eyes and raise fingers or hands to indicate their answer. All right, these are few things that you need to adopt while you are going ahead with your question. How would I recognize if hinge point questions are working? Very important. I'm trying out my best, I'm doing my best, but how do I understand that whether it is working or no? So the evidence from hinge point questions successfully help you to understand which students are with you, who is able to reason out to your questions. Evidence from hinge point questions help you successfully allocate students to appropriately differentiate follow-up or remediation activity. Now, as I mentioned in my introduction, that I am into teaching and the IB students, right? So one thing, I mean, there are many, but I would like to put forward here that in an IB education system, what I have seen is teacher, the facilitator, has complete liberty to explore the approaches they want in the classroom because they don't believe in content teaching. IB believes in skill based learning. So the students here are given an opportunity to develop their skills. They are made to prepare themselves to face the real world, the life ahead, the future, right? So differentiation. I've gone back to my introduction just because I've seen this word differentiation. So when I plan for the unit, there's a column in the IB unit planner, differentiation. It says how do you differentiate your teaching for a group of students. That's why I was motivated to take up my previous session on individualistic learning. So it's not about doing for everyone. It's about a particular approach for a particular person. Individually, you are uh, reaching out to that person. Next question. Might hinge point questions cause problems in my classroom? Possibly if students are unclear how you are using the evidence from the hinge point question to support the next stage of learning. So what you're doing is you are looking at, can I move forward after this? Right? You have paused at a certain point. You are now thinking, is it right for me to move ahead or should I mold my way? Should I change my plan? You have made a pause there. So now you're thinking about what to do. So if you are well aware of your classroom, the evidence which you got it, then you can definitely go forward. Possibly because they identify who has understood, who hasn't understood the concept. It is worth concentrating particular effect on those who have not understood. Yes, focus on those who have not understood. Try to mold your planning accordingly. How do I deal with the answers from a hinge point question? You need to have plan in advance and you need to decide how to react to the evidence. Do you want to move on or make some remedial work or differentiate in the activities? Lastly, how will I organize groups to make the most evidence from the hinge point questions? You might decide to place the students who got wrong, in the same group or give them some different activity. Okay. If you're not looking at the answers, correct answers, but you want to check the understanding, absolutely, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so follow on with different activities what you have created. So these were some of the questions a hinge point questioning skill. It's a skill, okay? It's a skill definitely for the teachers to understand how to conduct it and how to diagnose the problems or where the students are, what they are thinking, what is going on in their mind. Are they with you or are they not? So ideally, I'll just stop the screen share. Yeah. Uh, okay. So ideally, what we need to look at is the hinge point questioning, which is a skill, right, is very difficult for a person to adopt. It is not easy. Teaching itself isn't easy. And dealing with a group of students having different problems, there's never one simple solution. So be careful of using this kind of questioning in your classroom. Take it to your classroom and be careful in using it. This will definitely help you diagnose this problem, and you will be able to find routes to move forward. So thank you very much for joining in for my webinar, and I have my next webinar starting at 2:30, and it's based on approaches to learning skills, which will be a continuation of assessment for learning. So thank you so much for joining in, and I hope I could reach out to you all. Okay, there is a question here. Can we say psychometric evaluation? Okay, psychometric evaluation is a completely different approach. Personally, I feel, because when you are, see, I am an individual as a classroom facilitator, facilitating my students. I would look at these in bits, right? I don't want to impose it on students and, try to define what a student is for myself and say that, okay, now let me just go to, think about psychometric, there is some problem. Let me just identify what the problem is by conducting some tests, which usually school counselors and psychiatrists and psychological counselors, they do it, right? So I think the person who has given this question, I think I'm able to reach you. Psychometric evaluation is a completely different concept. Okay, it is done for different identifications. It is this hinge point questioning is very simple, just for a student who can just for a teacher who can just drop in to check out what the method can be, and it is also for the teacher, okay, to help the teacher out whether the teacher is on the right track. All right, so if you all have any questions, you can post it in the chat box. The floor is open for questions. All right, there are none. So thank you so much once again for joining in this webinar, and do try to join at 2:30 Indian Standard Time, and it is on approaches to learning skills. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.